Welcome everybody to the National League section of the Dan Sports Tips MLB season preview. We're going to go through each division day by day, and I'm going to give you my opinions and a few tips as well to try and win some money. Okay then, the National League East will start with the Atlanta Braves, because I'm not going to waste much time on them. Freddie Freeman at first base is a good player. The team is clearly rebuilding. It's filled with a lot of average players. The rotation is very, very below par. This team doesn't appear to be interested in winning a lot of baseball games this year, and it's very difficult to see a scenario where the Braves can contend. So I'm going to move along very quickly. The Philadelphia Phillies, I mean, this is another team in a division that's very top-heavy, and there's a couple of them in the National League that appears to be punting this season and looking to pick up a top-end draft pick and accelerate the rebuilding process for next year. On the flip side, they do have the third baseman, Michael Franco, to watch this year. He should be exciting. The rotation is miles away from a team that's going to contend, and there's probably a lot of money to be made opposing the Phillies this year because they're not good enough, much like the Braves, to contend in a division with certainly two excellent teams in it. So I'm not going to waste any more time on those two sides, and we're going to move on to the teams that actually have a shot. The Miami Marlins, first baseman is going to be Justin Bour this year. He's going to need to improve what he does against left-handed pitching, and they've got a few weaknesses at catcher and shortstop as well, with Real Muto and Hechavarria. The outfield looks great. They look solid defensively. They can hit. There's power there, and to be honest, they've moved the fences in at Marlins ballpark this year. So Giancarlo Stanton is going to hit a lot of home runs, and if he can stay healthy for the whole year, then there's no reason why he won't lead the league this year. The rotation, obviously Jose Fernandez is back. He's going to be there for the whole year this season. I believe he's in a contract year as well. So certainly the Marlins are struggling, I think, to get a deal done from what you read with them. They've picked up Wei-Yin Shen from the Baltimore Orioles. They've got Kohler and Colsart behind them. One or both of them is going to need to step up if Miami's going to contend in this division, because the other two teams are loaded with pitching. They're a hard team to project, the Marlins. If things drop their way, if they get the pitching production from the sort of middle end of the rotation, then they've got a chance of certainly upsetting the odds. But if there was only one team that looked very good ahead of them, I'd be more inclined to give them a chance. But when Washington and the Mets both look like good teams going into this year, it's difficult to see Miami making certainly winning the division, maybe a wild card. I mean, they get to play a lot of games against Philadelphia and Atlanta, which will be a lot of wins. But the Marlins aren't for me at the prices this year. The Washington Nationals. This has got to be their year. They've spent the last few years looking like they're loaded for bear. They've had alternated good years and disappointing years. They're coming into this season off a disappointing year. Steven Strasburg, he's out of contract at the end of the season. Obviously, Jordan Zimmerman and Doug Fister have moved on from last year's rotation. However, the pitching does still look strong. I mean, when you've got Max Scherzer to throw out there every fifth day, Steven Strasburg as well, he had his moments where he wasn't quite so good last year, but if he's got it figured out in a contract year, you suspect he might. With Tanner Roark, Joe Ross, and the enigmatic Joe Gonzalez, that's a strong five-man rotation. The lineup looks strong top to bottom as well. I mean, you've got Bryce Harper, who's the National League MVP. He's young. He's only going to get better. If Jason Worth and Ryan Zimmerman and Anthony Rendon, players that all have suffered with injuries over the last few years, can stay healthy, with Dusty Baker in at manager, creating a much more pleasant clubhouse experience, the team looks primed for a run for me. And it's a head-to-head with the Mets. They get a lot of games against subpar opposition. There's no reason to suggest that these two teams aren't going to be at the top of the standings come the end of the season. And I really like the Nationals this year. I think they will bounce back. They could go close to 100 wins, and I think they'll just shade the division from the Mets. The New York Mets, they come in with a reputation for being excellent pitching and not so strong on offense. Don't believe the myth about the Mets and their offense. Citi Field, the home ballpark, is an extreme pitcher's ballpark. It swallows up the balls in the outfield. The Mets actually ranked second for road runs scored in the National League last year. So that says to me, if you were to sort of play in a neutral ballpark, this offense would be towards the top end, and they look legitimate to me. I don't think they're as good defensively. I think they have made the trade off really on defence this year, and they are obviously a little bit older as well. Key to this team is the starting pitchers: Matt Harvey, Jacob deGrom, Noah Syndergaard, Tyler Matz, and at some point in the season you'll probably see Zach Wheeler promoted as well. I do have some concerns about durability because this team represented the National League in the World Series last year. They've thrown a lot of extra innings. They are young. In particular, I'd worry about Syndergaard and Harvey. There is such thing as the World Series hangover. It didn't affect the Royals last year, but it can hit and hurt teams. There's a weight of expectation that wasn't there last year. No one was going into last year looking at the Mets expecting contention. It will be interesting to see how they deal with that this year. They're a good team. They get a lot of games against the Braves. They get a lot of games against the Phillies. They should secure enough wins for a wild card. But I just feel that the Nationals might have too much for them in the division this year.